welcome to the Edge of Madness. This is your host, Rusty.
I'm Mr. J. We wanted to start off this episode by saying sorry about last week's delay. We were having some technical difficulties with our editing software. We've gotten a brand new one, so we're trying to figure out the bugs and everything in it. But now we're back and we're fully fledged. So, Rusty, what do we have for our current conspiracy this week?
So there's been an ongoing, movement on HN with people following this person, this Q person.
Q.
Yeah, they claim to be called the Storm.
The Storm, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I've heard a lot of mixed information on this movement, these people. But I think I follow one of their pages on Reddit, and they don't seem to be bad. I don't think they have malicious intents or anything. They believe that this Q person is within the president's cabinet, or might be the president himself, leaking information on the process of draining the swamp, according to what Trump had planned during his campaign. Some of the information has been leaked through riddles or pictures, just little hints here and there. The people in the movement have been investigating and finding things out using these hints, about like some of the trials of the FBI going on, some of the investigations, and getting rid of, like, supposedly Q and the movement are working to get rid of the bad people in our government.
Oh, that's good. Well, I mean, if we can have more of that, that'd be great. So this movement, is Q like this one person, or is it like an accumulative of a bunch of people?
See, that's the question. Some of our government officials have acknowledged the existence of Q officially.
Right.
But no one has said whether it's a group of people or if it's a single person. It's all guesswork right now. Okay. But what we do know, what occurred this week that kind of helps the movement in identifying who it is that during President Trump's rally, he pointed out a guy wearing a Q t-shirt. And he like acknowledged him and smiled at him, gave him a thumbs up or whatever. And so that was a big deal because it was like official acknowledgement that Q is in the office. The president knows who he is and what's going on. So I don't know if that counts as like it is acknowledgement, but I don't know if that's like an endorsement.
Like he's okay with this happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Now, if Q is in this is in the cabinet and he's working with the president, he's working with these other political figures, how is he exposing these other corrupted figures, or like how is he getting the corruption out of Washington?
Well, see, that is what I'm not totally familiar with. The hints are, I guess, keeping the people of the storm informed on what the president's and the cabinet's plans are against these people. I guess the bad people, as they speak, are like corrupt people in the FBI, corrupt politicians.
So all the people he's been quote unquote firing, or quote unquote
firing, or like have been investigated for like bias in the FBI, stuff like that. I mean, some of the counter arguments against this movement are that the movement is working towards like getting rid of the Democratic Party or like working against it. The movement claims that the Democratic Party, or so these websites claim that the Democratic Party is evil, run by Satanists, blah blah blah. I don't know how much of that is true, but we do know that some of the work that they've hinted at has resulted in some corrupt people being ousted.
Well, that's good.
So, or being
like exposed for what they are.
Investigated, exposed. So, I'm not too familiar with it. All I know is like it was a big deal this week because the president publicly acknowledged the existence and possibly endorsed it.
Okay.
So
Yeah, because I know I was looking into it, or a little bit into it, and I saw all the things on like Pizzagate and um, the current things that have been happening in Arizona with the little
oh, the veterans group.
yeah, the veterans group and everything like
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So I know those are tied in somehow into it, and other things like that. But yeah, I mean, if we can get the corruption out of our government, that'd be great.
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I mean, it's all a matter of what you buy, who you listen to. In today's day and age, the truth, it's so hard to find.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all even if you find facts according to publicly unbiased places, you have to assume that there's some manipulation going on there.
Oh, of course.
Because even the big boys, the big corporations, you can't trust them. You really can't. Or like the people who've always claimed to be unbiased, you can't trust them anymore. You just can't. Everything's too politicized.
That's true.
And even the news we get has been shown most of it's fake. So
Yeah, I mean, the current things that we've been seeing so far. I mean, the most, what is it? The most, I guess, hot topic right now is the celebrities endorsing the refugees, and a lot of those have been seen as being fake.
right, yeah, yeah. I know. Like Telemundo put out that fake footage.
Yeah.
It was actually, well, it wasn't fake. It was footage of a protest.
Yeah.
But they framed it in a way to make it seem like
Yes.
it was
That
the
there was,
actual
like, an
immigrant
actual
children.
child in the
Yeah.
cage.
Yes.
And I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, that's wrong.
No, in the
That's
footage that
wrong.
I've seen from the actual places, these kids are in yes, they are cages, but they're very large facilities.
Mhm.
Usually they're pretty comfortable. They have beds, they have food,
Well,
water.
these are like what they look like to me. They look like juvenile retention
Yeah.
sites.
Yeah. That's what it is. It's just a temporary place where they can stay and be minimally comfortable or minimally taken care of to where it's efficient.
Mhm.
They can be handled until the legal process handles their situation.
Right. Oh, I mean,
But the thing is that stuff's been going on for years.
that's true. I mean, well, yeah. I mean, it all goes into what the media is going to show us, and
Yeah.
people believe what the media shows us. I mean, if you like to see what's really going on, you have to go beyond that. You have to do your own research and see.
Yeah, and visit these
what's
places
going
in
on.
person. I
Yeah.
mean, in our own city, we have several of those kind of facilities.
Yes, we do.
And they're not actually that bad. They're really not. Like some of them are run by private corporations, nonprofits. Some of them are publicly funded.
Mm-hmm.
But the facilities they're not meant to harm these children.
Right.
They're meant to just be temporary holding facilities
Mm-hmm.
for kids that were either brought here illegally or are orphans who came here
Mm-hmm.
by themselves hoping for a better future. And beyond politics, yeah, I think we do have a duty to take care of them, but at the same time, America shouldn't be seen as this like catch-all place for the world's issues, you know. But the true story is that the kids are as diverse as anyone else. You know, it's not just like poor immigrant families from Mexico. No, a lot of times it's people from all over the world.
Yeah.
And they're not all families. Some of them are just kids. Some of them are just adults. You know, so it's hard to like come up with a
finite way of
like one solution to this problem.
Yeah.
And I think the media is just like using it to lambaste Trump. But it's not his problem. It's not his fault. He hasn't even done anything. Like that's the way it's been for years.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that's just it's another way for like the media to attack.
Like we've been saying in a bunch of in our past two previous episodes, it's a way of the media to distract us from what's going on in the background.
Oh, most definitely.
Because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure while all these accusations and all these what is it? All these things are happening. They're trying their best to make it so we're focusing on this one thing and not focusing on the aspects of Q or the litigations that are happening within Washington
Yeah.
or anything
Yeah.
like that.
For sure. I mean, the FBI investigations are still going on.
Yeah.
There's still issues about some of the things that happen between the Democrats in the campaign. There's still issues with the FBI. There's still all kinds of stuff like that going on that the media covers for a week and then they forget about it.
Yeah.
And of course, there's still world issues that we need to talk about, like the North Korea situation didn't just go away.
No, it didn't.
So we need to like just be aware, stay aware, and I think most people these days actually are more informed.
Well, the thing is, we are, but a lot of these people, once this little snippet comes out, then it goes away.
Yeah.
And they don't care about it anymore because it's no longer relevant.
Yeah, true.
Or no longer relevant to their lives because it's not on the TV anymore.
Right.
You know, and that's really sad. I think more people should just if something interests you, news wise, and you see this and it's like, hey, this could really affect me in some way. Go out and try and look for it. I mean, there's always going to be coverage on it, no matter what. If it's not the big news medias that are covering it, it'll be someone else. It'll be a small reporter, or it'll be someone doing some type of report or some kind of investigation into it. I mean, we live in a world now where we have so many resources and so many ways of getting this information that it's impossible for them just to keep it all under wraps. That's why they try to distract us with these other things. You know what I mean?
Nice. Yeah. Okay, I think that's a good place to go and start talking about today's real topic.
Yes, the Flatwood Monster. So, for those of y'all who aren't familiar with the cryptid lore of West Virginia, it's one of, I guess, very concentrated with different types of monsters and cryptids and other little conspiracy theories. And we'll be hitting more of them as we go on with the episodes. But right now I wanted to hit you with something that you may not have heard of ever because its life was very short-lived.
Yeah, I've never actually heard of it prior to doing research for this episode. Or y'all doing research. I'm just here to look pretty. No, yeah, I've never heard of this monster before. Or alien or entity, whatever it is.
Yeah, the thing that interested me in the beginning was there's a game that's going to be coming out soon, and they were talking about a lot of the lore that they were going to implement into this game, and I was looking up what type of thing or what kind of cryptids they had into it, since that's what interested me, and the Flatwood Monster was one of them. So I was like, oh, this thing, and they had a little picture of it. I was like, oh, this thing looks kind of crazy. So I looked into it, what the story was on it, what it was, and what it has to do with the rest of the West Virginia lore. So I guess that's what we're going to talk about today. But like I said, this is a monster that is known only in West Virginia. It's known in the town of Flatwoods. Back in the year 1952, on September 12th, is when it was found. But before I get into that, so it was found in the small town of Flatwood. At that point in 1952, there were only 200 people within that small town, and that is where it is found in the.
Yeah, so it was like a farming community or timber community, or what?
It was a farming community.
Okay.
There were a lot of farmers, a lot of. It wasn't really timber community from what I found. I'm not sure what they grew. I think it was mostly crops. So
yeah, it's just interesting to me that a lot of these like supposed UFO and alien landings and things like that, they're usually seen around heavily wooded areas,
right,
or farmland, more rural, rurally based areas, few people, and hard to prove.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, think of it this way: if you're some kind of extraterrestrial life form, I mean, you're smart enough to be able to travel through space, so you will know basic things on how. If you want to stay secret, I'm pretty sure you know how to stay secret. You're gonna go if you're gonna study a populated area. study something with a small population that's easy, somewhere you can easily hide either your ship or yourself, um, and you'd be fine with that. And even if they did see you, the population is so small that you don't really have to worry about alarming their military or anything like that.
Yeah, especially when there's like connotations of rural people being less believable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're yeah, because they're seen as backwards or crazy kooks, things like that. But anyways, let me get to the story with this. So, on September 12th, 1952, on a Friday night, two brothers, Edward May, who was 13 years old, and Fredward May, who was 12 years old, were playing football. I know, right? It's crazy.
Who names their kid Fredward? I mean, really,
Fred, come on.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, what's like...
Well, Fred is short for Frank or Franklin.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
Frank is like Franklin.
Yeah, but there's also Fred. There's no Fredward.
No, I think that's where.
I think they just made that up to rhyme with Edward.
No.
Or Frederick, yeah. Thanks.
Frederick.
Thanks. Producer, our executive producer.
Brunhilde.
Yeah, Brunhilde. There you go. That's your name.
Well, maybe
your name's Brunhilde.
the mom probably made, because she's not the most what is it?
Inventive person.
Well, she's a teacher, so. But
okay. Well,
I'm just saying, man. Maybe she wanted them to sound the same. Fredward and Edward. They have that rhyming to them.
All right. Well, what did Edward and Fredward see?
Okay, so they were with their friend Tommy Hinger, who was also 13, and they were playing football out on the school playground. When all of a sudden a flashing light skidded through the sky, and they had described it as a fireball streaking through the sky. The light had landed in a local farm. And the farm owner was owned by a man named Glee Lee Fisher. So when the boys saw, I know,
again,
these are very
Glee
Lee, that's his name.
Lee. Oh.
Lee Lee.
Yeah, I don't think I ever want to go here. I don't think I ever want to go to that place.
So when the boys saw this, they ran back home and they told their mom about it. Well, their mother, Catherine Fisher, or Catherine May.
That's a normal name. Good.
I guess. Had gathered up a little posse to go and basically what they were going to do is trespass on Mr. Fisher's land without permission and go and see what's going on his land. Well, what makes me wonder is, where was Mr. Fisher at this point? Because in this story, you don't hear anything about him.
Yeah, it depends on the size of his land, but
he got.
You see a giant fireball crashing near you. And if your crops are your only livelihood, you would think you would go check it out.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, it wasn't even he was a farmer and he owned part of that land was for farming.
Mm-hmm.
But where it landed more in the forest area.
Okay. Well then, there's a lot of factors that could influence his decision not to go.
And it never says how much acreage he has either.
Right.
Because apparently this is a very big lot of land. Because they had to jump a 10-foot fence to get to his land.
Yeah, so that's kind of a fishy detail already, that they, this posse led by a teacher, right?
Yeah.
That's another thing. A teacher back in those days would be risking her livelihood by getting involved in any kind of drama. Because the teachers were expected in those days to behave a certain way and to not be involved in any kind of.
But she was also,
stuff.
I think she was also a very big part of the town because she also owned a business. She owned some type of retail business or something like that as well.
Right. Well, yeah. Lots of different factors that probably would never come through in the stories, But anyway, let's get back to it.
So they had joined the posse, and the posse was made up of a few of the boys that Miss May knew from uh, her classmates, basically, or not her classmates, her
Students.
students. Thank you. So it was made up. The posse was made up of 7 people. The first 3 were, of course, Miss May and her 2 children. Also, there was Tommy Hinger, Neil Nully, who was 14, Ronnie Schaefer, of 10 years old, and a 17-year-old National Guardsman Eugene G. Levin.
Okay.
So the group traveled to the farm to see what had landed on Mr. Fisher's farm. They were only armed with 1 flashlight, and Eugene had brought his dog to sniff out whatever was happening.
So this is kind of sounding to me like a bad 50s science fiction movie.
Right?
You know, I'm wondering, like, to me that makes it seem less credible. It seems more like maybe they were trying to make up some kind of story for their town.
Because
you know,
even when the boys ran home to their mother, they were like, "Hey, we saw a flying saucer crash into Mr. Fisher's farm."
Right, just like the movies.
Yeah.
You know, and then have this creature just come out. They all ran away. You know.
But the thing, okay, well, right now it's really seeming like a really cheap sci-fi movie. But let me get into it. So they were only armed with one flashlight. Thank you. One flashlight and their dog.
Just one.
So
just one dog, right?
Just one dog. So when the group got there to the crash site, they saw a large pulsing ball of fire that was 50 feet to the right of them.
Okay.
To the right of them. And then when they said they came across 2 red eyes shining from an animal in the trees.
Okay.
And Mrs. May had said that she had quoted that she thought it might have been a possum or a raccoon or something. But Eugene saw it as well.
So the eyes weren't large? I mean, like, if you saw possums or raccoons' eyes shine.
Yeah, you would see them very close to each
Yeah,
other.
and you would see, like, the size would be small.
She thought these were 2 animals, though.
Okay.
From what I'm understanding from the eyewitness report.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's saying, "Oh, well, I thought they were animals. I thought they were possums. I thought they were raccoons."
Okay.
Like, I think she thought there were more than one.
Right. Well, that's interesting. That's a different detail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so she thought it was that. So then Eugene shines a light into the trees, and what they find from what they described in their report is a 10-foot monster with a red face and a green body that seemed to glow. So this was a giant 10-foot monster.
Yeah.
And all 7 have reported that that's what they saw. They saw a monster with a red face, red eyes, and a green body that glowed. And also, the light received an enormous. So in the light, it looked like an enormous man-like figure with a circular red face, so a very round face, and a pointed hood-like shape that protruded outside of its head, kind of like a hood. It's always whenever people or whenever they talk about it, it looks like an ace of spades, almost.
Yeah, I swear I've seen that in a sci-fi movie before.
Yeah, it sounds similar to that.
Yeah, so those details make it that undeniably that crosses out any kind of wildlife we have here on Earth that we know of. That would reserve it to any either human dressed up in something or like in some kind of outfit or an alien.
But the thing is, yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be a human, of course. But I mean, this thing fell from the sky. The kids saw something fall.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been weather balloon. It could have been a failed plane, something like
Right.
even a crop duster. Like the chemicals from the crop duster could look like flames, and they just saw it
Yeah,
fly.
and that would burn your throat like they suggested later on, right?
Yeah.
They,
Oh yeah, I'll get into that.
yeah.
But
But did they see this thing actually get out of whatever apparatus
no,
fell from the
they
sky?
never even saw it. Like
Okay.
they see something fiery in the background of
Mm-hmm.
it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's probably its ship like burning.
Okay.
But the thing is too, in the reports, they never talk about that.
Right. They just talk about the creature itself,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah. That's interesting. That's very like I don't know. I guess I have to kind of put myself in that position. You know, you're unarmed. You see this thing come out of the woods, and it's twice as big as you are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I guess fear would take over. You probably wouldn't notice a whole lot of details,
Yeah.
and probably wouldn't want to get closer to investigate.
Yeah.
Um,
The thing is the size of it too,
yeah.
because it's reported to be either taller than an average man.
Mm-hmm.
Because the size of the creature does vary between the witnesses. Some of them say that it's 7 feet. Some people say that it was 17 feet tall. So
Right. Yeah.
either way, it was taller than
Yeah.
an average man.
Yeah. Bigger than your typical.
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what type of trees did they have in West Virginia.
Jesus.
Where they have like oak.
Yeah, they probably have a bunch of
Oak,
oak,
hickory.
maybe some pine.
So I mean, these aren't really big trees to begin with.
I don't know. I don't know what size they grow to in West Virginia. But I don't know if they can all judge that this thing was bigger than a person would be, then that takes out some possibilities for a hoax.
Yeah.
Because even for a big costume in those days, that would have been tough to do.
Yeah.
A big hoax to do. That would have been hard.
And the way they did it, because even then, that's not a very natural way of saying. That was the depiction of extraterrestrials in that day. They
Yeah,
were either the
right.
little green men or they were the Greys.
Right.
There wasn't really
Or robots. Robot
or
kind.
robots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is definitely more detailed than your typical sci-fi story of the time. I think the encounter is very reminiscent of a sci-fi movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, were these people? How are they affected by this? I think that's one of the details that might be important, because if it didn't really damage their lives in any way afterwards, but it brought publicity to the town, then I mean, what I'm leaning towards is that the town may have created this story, put up this hoax as a way to bring in more attention, industry.
The story itself, I mean, it gets a lot of local
Mm-hmm.
publicity,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't get like national or anything like that, like you do with the Mothman, which is a more
Right.
popular cryptid in North America,
Right.
or in North America and West Virginia. Doesn't get anything like the Chupacabra. Doesn't get anything like Sasquatch, anything like that.
Right.
And it's really, even in the 50s, it doesn't get that, like, it's probably a week of popularity, then it dies until this other reporter comes in the 80s and looks at it again. But even then, he's just looking at it so he can prove his own little thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll get into that. But anyways, once they see this creature, they're just taken back on what it is and what it looks like. So they keep talking about the cowl on it, how it looks kind of like an upside down diamond. Eyewitness accounts say that they don't know what the bottom of the body actually looks like, that they describe it as out of focus or out of clarity. The original drawings of the monster do not depict its lower body, so they kind of just draw it as like a shroud or as like a triangle. They don't really draw the bottom of the body. They're more focused on the top of the body. So from the chest up is what they're talking about.
See, that's interesting too because like I don't know the image that I immediately got when you said that it was like distorted or what would you say?
It's
Like not clear, right?
like out of focus.
Out of focus. To me, that's like the heat that comes off of a jet engine causes the air to ripple, and things don't look as clear. So like maybe this thing is levitated off the ground by some sort of heat.
Yeah, and that's what they say too. So descriptions from the waist down are very vague. Most of the seven said that part of the figure was not under view. So that is a quote from Gray Barker. He was a ufologist that actually did the report on the Flatwoods monster back in the 50s. He went and he talked to all the seven eyewitnesses and got their story, and he did a little verb on them.
Okay.
But they said that the bottom kind of like looked drape-like. It had like drape-like folds, and its arms, it had claw-like limbs.
Okay.
So it had limbs with claws on it. Doesn't really describe what kind of claws, like if it's a lobster claw or if it, like a werewolf claw, something like that. But just sharp appendages.
Okay.
And they said that it glowed from within. So it had like this bioluminescence to it.
Okay.
And that was a witness account from Neil Nolly, his name was? Yeah, Neil Nunley.
Interesting.
They said when it made a shrill hissing sound, and it floated towards them. So it did have that floating apparatus to it. And once it did that, they booked for it.
Right.
So
yeah. Understandable.
So this whole interaction was probably maybe like a minute or two, and once it hissed and started coming at them, they booked it and went back to Miss May's house.
Right.
Now, once they got back to her house, she had called the sheriff's department, and they went out and they investigated it. Now, they couldn't find the monster itself, but they could. Now, before I get into that, it also says that it gives off a very pungent smell.
Okay.
So they don't really explain what kind of smell it is, but it's very nauseating. Whenever they got closer to the crash site, they noticed this scent started coming from that part, and it said that it burnt their nostrils. And a few weeks after, a lot of the eyewitnesses were sick. They were nauseated, and what's his name? Or Eugene talks about his throat had been burning for weeks on end until finally it subsided.
Wow.
But as the sheriff's department went to check out the area, they could smell the lingering scent from that, and they saw two giant gashes within the ground. So probably from whenever it was floating towards them, or if it crashed down.
Right. Right. Yeah. Man, that's weird.
Yeah. Now, whenever they were doing this, whenever they said it was extremely dark, there was no light sources out there. The only light source that they had was Eugene's flashlight.
Right.
So I mean,
but they could clearly see this thing because it glowed from within, and its eyes were also bright.
Yes.
Wow. Huh.
I mean, just the way they describe the face as being round and red.
Right.
So I was always trying to think, okay, what's something on this planet that's round and red that looks like a human face or a humanoid face? You know what I mean?
I mean, the only thing I can think of is like a monkey. Like there's a monkey that has the super red face, but why would it be in the West Virginia woods around fire? And then that doesn't explain the green hood.
Maybe a type of sign. Maybe it was like what is it? The Tootsie Pop things, because I know they had the weird mascots back then.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't know. It's really weird. And then not only that, but the green body.
Yeah, I think that's the harder part to explain, because the red and the eyes, that could be probably, you could say that was a sign or some kind of lights, maybe even debris from whatever explosion took place. But the fact that it was green and then it floated towards them, and then the claws. I think the claws could be easily imagined by like branches being around it. But the fact that it floated, the scent, and then the fact that people were sick afterwards. Those are the bits of evidence that would lead me to believe it was something else.
I mean, it could have been, like we said, it could have been a malfunctioned crop dust plane.
Right.
It could have crashed down. I mean, because if you smell that, like you said, if you smell that, all the toxins, everything that they have, that they dust the corn with it or whatever, it can get you sick.
I wonder if the chemicals that they used to carry could cause hallucinations.
Maybe.
I mean, they smell the smell.
The stuff back then wasn't FDA approved, so.
Right. It was a little different back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very interesting event, and it's never happened since.
Yes, this is the one account. That's the thing.
It's just the one time.
So back to the thing. So not only did she call the sheriff's department, she also called a local paper that went and they investigated as well. They went at different times, but the police did say that they could not find a monster. They could not find anyone that Miss May had described anywhere near Mr. Fisher's property. It did say that they found the 2 gash marks, and they did smell a funny scent, is what they said. Now, when the reporter went, he had looked at the gashes and looked down at them, and he said that he found a oily, sticky substance on the gash marks that are and with ufologists, they say that's supposedly very common in UFO crash sites.
So what could that be?
I don't know, some sort of oil or
maybe like exhaust from
of
the
some
machine.
Sort, yeah. But the thing is, it's just the reporter who said that he found that.
Right.
It wasn't in the police reports or anything like that.
Yeah, there's no corroborating evidence or anything. Yeah.
More likely it was fake.
Yeah, to me it's kind of odd still that she called the newspaper. Like relatively quickly after the event.
I mean, if she was someone who's important within the town, she's probably thinking, okay, we're 200 people, we're not doing. I mean, we're a farm town, anything like that, but how can we make a profit off of this or something like that,
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't put it past people back in the day to try to think of creative ways to get some funds for their towns.
She's probably looking at, okay, look at Roswell. Look what happened to Roswell.
Yeah.
And how we had the whole alien scare there. Now look at them. They're booming with tourism and everything. Everyone wants to come and look for the alien. Everyone wants to come and look at the crash site. Something like that,
Yeah.
And they see how that blew up across the U.S.
Right.
Well, she's thinking maybe, this is West Virginia's Roswell here.
Right.
But it never really blew up to that point.
Yeah. I think you're probably right on that note. Yeah. I mean, I'm not blaming her for anything. It's just,
of course.
I don't know the credibility of this event. There's just not enough solid evidence to say what happened.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, once this story has gone on, I mean, Flatwoods, they made it kind of a little thing. Oh, watch out for the Flatwoods monster, but
right.
That was more of that town's folklore or something like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't really something that the rest of the U.S. or even West Virginia at that point kind of recognized as a real thing. I mean, like you
right.
said, you never even heard of the Flatwoods monster.
Yeah.
Mentioned it to you.
I mean, it's interesting for sure.
Well, of course. Even me, before I was looking into it, I never heard of it. But there's that. And after that week, it kind of died off. Now, there was this other ufologist. I never got his first name, but Barker was his name. he was looking into this because he believed that this Flatwoods monster actually had to deal with the reptilian race. And how they deal with that is the Flatwoods, what was depicted wasn't actually the life form itself, but it was the ship or the kind of canister that surrounded the actual life form, which was the reptilian monster. Because he said that these red eyes and the levitation, everything, that had to deal with the levitation had to deal with this being jet propelled from the ground. And like you said, whenever jets are going off, you can see the heat patterns on the bottom. You can't really tell what's going on the bottom of that.
Right.
And the red eyes, red robot eyes, is what he was saying. Now he said that he went back to Flatwoods, and 20 years later, after the whole incident, and he talked to Miss May again to see if she had any more information or anything like that. And apparently he said, oh yeah, she says that it's actually a robot, or the creature had more of a metallic sheen to it or anything like that. But no one could really confirm that from Miss May herself. So more likely he made it up. And like I said, this is the only account of that creature from the original story that I just told you was the only account of anyone ever seeing the Flatwoods monster. Now, I have a theory myself about the Flatwoods monster, and it has to deal with another one of West Virginia's more popular cryptids, the Mothman. So the Mothman has also been seen as this out-of-world or interdimensional being that tells the future and things like that. But the Flatwoods monster was 6 years before the first sighting of the Mothman. So what I'm thinking is, if the Flatwoods monster is real, it was first crash landed or teleported to Earth in some way. The first 7 posse, they saw it, seeing it in its first form with its kind of I guess its apparel from its planet or from its dimension, whatever it was. And when it was no longer, whenever those people left, it went off into the woods somewhere, and it kind of shed its apparel or its skin or whatever it was, and became the Mothman to what people saw 6 years later. Because they both have the red eyes in common. They both have the
large presence for sure.
The large presence,
yeah.
Yes. Because Mothman, I don't think they ever put an actual size on him, did they?
Well, I know that the people who claim that he flew over their car, they claim that his wingspan or whatever he had at least engulfed the car.
Okay, so it's about 10, 12 feet.
Yeah, at least. And then, I don't know, what's the science behind propelling at least a man-sized creature 60 miles an hour? Because that's what they said he was flying at.
Oh, I don't know. I have to look into that.
So he'd have to have pretty big wings, I would think.
Yeah.
If indeed, he was flying and all that.
Yeah. Well, even then, the first depictions of Mothman, he didn't have wings. Or they didn't say he had wings. They just said he was flying.
Right. He was just flying, and he was a large thing. Yeah, with big red or yellow eyes, I think. It's just weird that both of these creatures have similar body aspects. Yeah, certain aspects in common with their appearance. They're appearing in a relatively small area, speaking globally.
Yeah.
It's within the same state, and they both are maybe not quite alien, maybe not quite nature, not quite human. It's just weird. I think you're going down a neat pathway.
Yeah.
And tying the two together. I would like to see some real evidence.
I would like to too.
To prove that,
I know the last, well, at least Mothman anyways, the last sighting or the last sighting of him was in 2017, and he was actually depicted in Chicago, but I don't know how much I want to believe that. The
Yeah.
last sighting in West Virginia that I know of was in 2014 when a man took a picture saying that it was Mothman. But even then, I take that with a grain of salt. Because why, after what, 30 years?
No, 50.
50?
Yeah, 50. Because I think the last like big sighting where a lot of people saw him
Uh-huh.
was on the Point Pleasant Bridge
Is
collapse.
that right?
And then after that, he was gone.
So then why all of a sudden now? Is he, if
Well,
he's showing up?
well, if he's showing up, that's the thing. The first witnesses associated him with the disaster.
Mm-hmm.
They claim that he was a harbinger of the death,
Right.
and he was coming to give a sign to people, or he was coming to cause it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know if I buy that. I think if this was a creature, it was probably a separate incident. It
Right.
just happened to be investigating the area, and the bridge collapsed. Yeah, I given that I don't buy that theory, I would say that there's not really any particular reason why he would be showing up now.
No, that's not, I think that's something to look into. Because I know Mothman is a big thing in West Virginia just for like tourists and stuff like that.
Yeah, he's a big pop culture icon in the area. Yeah, he's like their Bigfoot locally.
Yeah. But I mean, why all of a sudden is there? What's the popularity, or why fake his appearance now? Whenever there's so many other things that they can do, or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or even then, if they aren't fakes, or if he is actually showing up, why is he showing up now?
Yeah, and I mean, you said the last sighting supposedly was in Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, let's take it all at face value. Let's say he is there for announcing a disaster.
Right.
What can we expect in the future?
I mean, Chicago's not that nice of a place.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know what to think.
Yeah, but I mean, that's more like I want to like West Virginia has a lot of cool, neat things in it that I think we will hit later on. There's more cryptids out there that I want to talk about from that area, and Mothman included. I want to do a big old thing on the Mothman. I just don't want to brush over him like we've been through this episode real quick.
Yeah, maybe like a special, like a 2-hour thing, or
that would be nice. Or if we could go to West Virginia,
well, that'd be cool.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Executive producer Brunhilde says no.
No, we're going. It's in the budget.
It's in the budget. Yeah. That's the whole year's budget.
That's the whole year's budget. But that's okay.
No, I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that I want. Even then, there's a lot of things I want to look into. There's some conspiracies there too that I want to look into as well.
Yeah, the Mothman definitely leads into the conspiracy of the Men in Black.
Yeah.
The Men in Black were very involved in that same issue.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the witnesses of Mothman were visited by the Men in Black, or so they claim.
Yeah.
And the Men in Black were seen around the investigation of the bridge too. So.
Yeah, from what I know, the Men in Black were not associated with the Flatwoods monster, just because I think it was such a small town thing, and it only really happened within that area.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't think anyone has heard of the Flatwood monster outside of that county.
Yeah, like the thing with the Mothman was that it was so public. Yes. It was so pervasive. Like the entire town knew.
Well, not only that,
what was going on,
the disaster that happened with it.
Yeah, and that's the big thing too, is that a disaster like that definitely pushes the publicity of the issue, and especially if you associate a monster with that.
Well, of course,
that's something that we just don't. That doesn't happen in modern times,
it was the Mothman.
Yeah, exactly. The Mothman destroyed the bridge. That kind of stuff.
Now, I think looking back at that as like a reporter, just like having like this credible person from this town, but like it was the Mothman. It's like, what do you do at that point?
Yeah, I
What
mean,
do you like say? Like, what do you tell your viewers? Like, okay, guys, I guess we got a half man, half moth flying through the air. Watch your kids, watch your dogs.
yeah, I
Don't
mean,
let them snatch it up.
yeah, yeah. I wonder. That's another thing. I wonder, like, who. Obviously, there was a lot of witnesses to like the Mothman, but who were these people, and like, how are they credible?
Yeah, that's something we can look into.
With the Flatwoods monster, I think the most credible witness is probably Miss May.
Yeah, because I mean these for the Flatwoods monster, they were all kids.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
of course, a kid's gonna look see this, and first off, in Edward and Fredward's head, you have them thinking this is a big adventure because
Yeah.
they saw a flying saucer fly through the air, crashed into this farmer's land. They went back to their mom, and their mom's like, "Yeah, let's go check it out." So they're thinking, "Oh, we're gonna find an alien," and they're probably telling all their friends, "We're gonna find an alien. It's gonna happen. We're gonna find an alien."
Right.
I think the only one that may not have that like nostalgia to him is Eugene, just because he's part of the National Guard and he's older, and at that point or in that time in America, a 17-year-old was seen as an adult.
Yeah, more
of an adult.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Even with Eugene's eyewitness reports, he basically said the same thing. He didn't say anything about the giant fireball illuminating in the background. So I think that was just Nully's thing, or Neil's thing. But he never talks about his dog either afterwards. So did he just like let his dog die, or?
I don't know.
He probably took it with
I mean,
how did he
it
get
happened
over the
in
fence?
happened in what, 52?
Yeah.
So I mean, some of these people are possibly still around.
Yeah.
Probably. And I mean,
probably the younger ones. Yeah, they're probably in their 40s.
It'd be really cool. I mean, if we could, to like get a hold of them, see if they're still willing to back up their stories.
No, yeah, we could check them out.
I mean, I don't know how we would go about doing that.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
Is Flatwoods still even there? Or we'd have to see if Flatwoods is still there, because it was such a small town.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably bigger now. It's probably like 2,000 people.
I don't know. We'll have to look it up.
I don't know. I don't really know not only do we have to do more research on the lore of West Virginia, but I want to do some more on West Virginia itself. Like, what is the terrain of it? Because it seemed mostly forest at this point. Is there anything else that goes along with it? What's the population like? What do they think? What are their beliefs? Things like that. Because that all goes into it. Because I mean, they're just seeing aliens everywhere now. So
I think that's pretty good. Any announcements for the week?
Nothing so far. Just follow our social medias as always. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure to like and subscribe, and ring the little bell.
Tell your crazy uncle about us.
Tell your crazy uncle about us, because we love your crazy uncle.
He loves us.
He loves us. And I mean, just get the conversation going. What do y'all think about this episode? Do you have anything to add to this, or do you want us to talk about something else? If there are any thing you want to talk about, any specific thing or any cryptid, let us know. If you are from another state, let us know if you have any lore that you would like us to look into, or anything conspiracy-wise that you would like us to look into. I'm always for that.
Fredward, if you're out there, we'd love to hear from you.
Fredward, how'd you get your name, man? That's something I would like to know. That's the real mystery here. Where'd you get the Fredward? Where'd Fredward come from?
Now we're just playing Fred.
If Mrs. May, if you're out there, let us know. What were your thoughts into that?
Yeah.
Okay, guys, I think that's it for this week. Thank you for watching, and if you're on our podcast, thank you for listening. This is The Edge of Madness. We'll see you next time, guys.
Catch you next week.